The year 1939 saw the world plunge into the abyss of World War II, casting a long shadow over Australia. John Curtin, a man of humble origins and a staunch Labour Party advocate, found himself at the helm of this young nation facing unprecedented challenges. His leadership, forged in the fires of the Great Depression and tempered by his unwavering belief in social justice, would guide Australia through its darkest hour. Curtin's vision extended beyond the battlefields, encompassing a deep commitment to social reform and a belief in the power of government to uplift the lives of all Australians. Curtin's leadership went beyond wartime strategy. He saw the war as an opportunity to reshape Australian society. He recognized the need to address long-standing social inequalities and create a more equitable nation. This vision led to a series of groundbreaking social reforms that would forever alter the fabric of Australian society. Under Curtin's leadership, Australia embarked on a path of social transformation that would redefine its national identity. The war brought new challenges, but also new opportunities for social change. The need to mobilize the nation's resources and support those affected by the conflict provided a powerful impetus for expanding the social safety net. Curtin seized this moment, pushing for a series of reforms that would lay the foundation for a more just and equitable Australia. These reforms were not merely acts of wartime expediency, they were the culmination of Curtin's lifelong commitment to social justice and his belief in the role of government in creating a more equitable society. Curtin's wartime leadership was marked by a deep sense of compassion for ordinary Australians. He understood the hardships faced by families, particularly those who had lost loved ones or were struggling to make ends meet in the face of wartime shortages and economic disruption. His social reforms were driven by a desire to alleviate suffering and provide a safety net for those most in need. This commitment to social justice would become a defining characteristic of his leadership and a cornerstone of his legacy. Prior to World War II, Australia's social security system was limited in scope, leaving many vulnerable Australians without adequate support. Curtin recognised the need to create a more comprehensive and inclusive system that would protect all citizens, regardless of their background or circumstances. He believed that every Australian deserved a basic standard of living and that the government had a moral obligation to provide for those who could not provide for themselves. In a bold move that challenged the prevailing social norms of the time, Curtin extended pension eligibility to include groups that had previously been excluded. In 1941, Asiatics, often subject to discrimination and prejudice, became eligible for pensions, marking a significant step towards a more inclusive society. This was followed in 1942 by the inclusion of Kanakas, Pacific Islander labourers brought to Australia under often exploitative conditions. These reforms represented a clear rejection of the White Australia policy and its discriminatory legacy. Recognising the historical injustices faced by Aboriginal Australians, Curtin extended pension eligibility to Indigenous Australians in 1942. This landmark decision acknowledged the government's responsibility to address the systemic disadvantages faced by Aboriginal people and provide them with the same social security protections afforded to other Australians. It was a significant step towards reconciliation, though much work remained to be done to achieve true equality for Indigenous Australians. These reforms were not without their critics. Some argued that extending social security to these groups would place an undue burden on the public purse, while others clung to the racist ideologies that had long underpinned Australia's immigration and social policies. However, Curtin remained steadfast in his belief that all Australians deserved a safety net, regardless of their race or origin. He understood that a just and equitable society could not be built on a foundation of exclusion and discrimination. Curtin's commitment to social justice extended beyond expanding eligibility for existing benefits. He also introduced a range of new social security measures designed to support families and individuals facing particular challenges. These new benefits reflected Curtin's deep understanding of the social and economic realities faced by ordinary Australians and his commitment to using the power of government to improve their lives. He believed that a compassionate society had a responsibility to care for its most vulnerable members. Recognizing the financial hardship faced by women who had lost their husbands, Curtin introduced the widow's pension in 1942. This provided a vital lifeline for widows struggling to support themselves and their children, allowing them to maintain a degree of financial independence and dignity. The introduction of the widow's pension was a testament to Curtin's commitment to gender equality and his recognition of the important role women played in Australian society. In another groundbreaking move, Curtin introduced maternity allowances in 1943. These payments provided much-needed financial assistance to expectant and new mothers, enabling them to better care for themselves and their infants. This initiative reflected a growing awareness of the importance of maternal health and the need to provide greater support to families during the crucial early years of a child's life. The introduction of maternity allowances was a major step forward in recognizing the value of motherhood and the importance of investing in the health and well-being of future generations. To alleviate the financial burden of funeral expenses, Curtin introduced funeral benefits in 1943. This ensured that all Australians, regardless of their financial means, could provide their loved ones with a dignified farewell. This small but significant measure demonstrated Curtin's deep empathy for grieving families and his commitment to ensuring that everyone had access to essential services, regardless of their economic circumstances. The introduction of funeral benefits was a testament to Curtin's belief in the importance of social cohesion and his desire to create a society where everyone felt supported during times of need. In 1943, with the war still raging, Curtin led the Labour Party to a resounding victory in the federal election. This triumph was not merely a reflection of his wartime leadership, but also a clear endorsement of his ambitious social reform agenda. The Australian people had placed their trust in Curtin to guide them through the challenges of war and peace, and he was determined to use his mandate to create a more just and equitable society. The 1943 election marked a turning point in Australian politics, signalling a shift towards a more inclusive and socially conscious nation. Emboldened by his re-election, Curtin pressed ahead with his ambitious program of social and economic reforms. He believed that the war had provided a unique opportunity to reshape Australian society and create a more equitable nation. Curtin's reforms were guided by a set of core principles: social justice, economic security, and national unity. He believed that a strong and prosperous Australia could only be built on a foundation of fairness, opportunity, and shared purpose. One of Curtin's most enduring legacies was his government's 1945 White Paper on Full Employment. This landmark document outlined a bold vision for a post-war Australia free from the scourge of unemployment that had plagued the nation for decades. The White Paper argued that full employment was not only desirable but achievable through a combination of government intervention, private sector investment, and social reform. It represented a radical departure from the laissez-faire economic policies of the past and laid the groundwork for the Keynesian economic model that would dominate the post-war era. The White Paper on Full Employment was not merely an economic document, it was a blueprint for social progress. It recognized that full employment was essential not only for economic prosperity but also for social cohesion and individual well-being. Curtin understood that unemployment was not merely a personal tragedy but a social ill that had to be addressed at a systemic level. The White Paper's emphasis on full employment as a central goal of government policy reflected Curtin's deep commitment to social justice and his belief that everyone deserved the dignity of work and the opportunity to contribute to society. Section 5, the White Paper. A blueprint for full employment and social progress. The White Paper on Full Employment, presented by Curtin's government in 1945, marked a watershed moment in Australian history. This visionary document, a product of extensive consultations and careful deliberation, articulated a bold plan for a post-war Australia characterised by economic security, social justice and national unity. It recognised that the scourge of unemployment, which had plagued the nation for decades, was not an inevitable consequence of economic cycles, but a solvable problem that demanded a comprehensive and coordinated response. At the heart of the White Paper lay the revolutionary concept of full employment as a central objective of government policy. This marked a radical departure from the prevailing economic orthodoxy